Okay, we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Stewart. I am a reentry coordinator for Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, Office of Reentry. We'd like to welcome you all to this workshop today. You're going to be meeting a very special guest. Her name is Mallory Pitts. She's going to be presenting information on offering hope to neighbors returning with disabilities. Just want to let everybody know that all virtual sessions are held via Zoom today. This session is going to be recorded. So it will be posted later in the Building Bridges Community Experience YouTube channel. Please disable your cameras during the presentation today. Please put only questions you have in the chat. And Mallory has a great presentation. And we just want to make sure you don't miss any of the information that she's going to be presenting on today. You may unmute during the end of the question and answer period. I will give you a 5-minute warning once the presentation is almost over. Just want to make sure we're getting everyone admitted in this session. So I'm going to read a bio for Mallory Pitts. She is a program administrator at Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, OOD. She has been employed here since May 2015. Currently, she oversees the Individual Placement Supports, IPS, collaboration with Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, OMAS, and the Jobs for Recovery, JFR, initiative in partnership with the Ohio Supreme Court statewide. Prior to her current role, Mallory supervised JFR and IPS initiatives at the local level for Ashtabula, Cuyahoga, and Summit counties as a vocational rehabilitation supervisor. With a diverse background, Mallory has also served as a correction program coordinator at Grafton Correctional Institution and as a community mental health counselor, specializing in the forensic population. Excuse me. She holds certifications as a rehabilitation counselor, professional clinical counselor, and independent chemical dependency counselor. Excuse me. Mallory holds a master's degree from Bowling Green University in sociology and rehabilitation counseling, respectively, and an additional master's degree in public administration from Kent State. So we're going to let Mallory start her presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to this session about our agency, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. As I'm talking, you may hear me use a few acronyms, so I'll explain what those acronyms are as we go through the presentation. But typically, our agency is just known as OOD. Next slide, please. Our agency, we're a state agency that helps individuals, Ohioans with disabilities with employment. We also work with determining disability through Social Security. And then we work in making sure that individuals have independence related into the community and into the workplace. We have a few guiding principles that you guys can go ahead and see on the screen, but the biggest one that we always want to make sure that we look at is acting with a sense of urgency. We do honor diversity. We do value collaboration. You're going to hear me talk about some of our collaborative partnerships that we have as we work through our process of vocational rehabilitation. And then we always want to make sure that we're celebrating the success of the individuals that we are working with. Next slide. So to get us started, what exactly is vocational rehabilitation? Throughout the presentation, you're going to hear me refer to it as VR, just because, you know, vocational rehabilitation is kind of a mouthful to continue to say. So what is VR? So VR is the process that helps individuals with disabilities to prepare for and maintain employment. It also looks at helping people advance in careers. And what we do at OOD is that we help individuals with credential attainment as well. So we focus on making sure that people prepare for a job, that they can obtain it, they can maintain the job that they have, or they can advance in their careers. The main goal of VR is always to help people achieve the economic self-sufficiency and then return to work as quickly as possible. So the vocational rehabilitation process with OOD can be broken down into 4 basic steps. The first one is the application for services. We then do our eligibility. We also call this eligibility in order of selection. We then provide services, and then we close a case. So I'm going to talk about each of these steps a little bit more in depth as far as working with our agency. So the first step is application. One of the very first things that to get started in the process is that you can apply for services, and they can be done in several ways. We have hard copies or that you can fill out, fax, old school, send in. We also have electronic copies that we can get sent in through fax or email. Um, and we have copies of those with different partnerships that we have across the state. And so one of those being with DRC and reentry. We are part of several coalitions. And so each of our partners have access to our applications and can help fill those applications out. You can always call and get connected with your local office. If you call the 1-800 number, they'll connect you with our local office. We do serve the entire state of Ohio. We serve all 88 counties. We have offices located in various counties. While we don't have a physical office in every single county, we can meet individuals where they're at. So either you can come to our office to apply for services or to talk to somebody, or we can meet you in your community at a library or any other public place that you feel would be appropriate. Another way that we have a process for applying for our services is through creating a profile on our online portal. It's called oodworks.com. Creating a profile online allows either the referral source or the applicant to track where you are in the process. It also gives you the ability to upload any required documents necessary for eligibility, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then the supporting documentation of the disability diagnosis can assist with expediting the process of the services getting started. So if you can connect all of those in that portal, then it'll help to expedite the process of our services. And then typically once the application is received, you'll get a phone call. We'll gather some additional information if there's anything missing, and then we'll schedule an intake appointment with you. The intake appointment is typically held within 30 calendar days of receiving that referral. And we really strive to stay within those timelines, but sometimes you can be seen within a week or 2 weeks, just depends on the availability of the staff in your area. Our next step is with eligibility. So as a state agency, we are funded federally. And so all of the funding and the services that we provide, we get from the federal government, and therefore we have to ensure that every individual that we serve meets specific criteria. And so the criteria for our agency is that the first one is that you have to be an Ohioan with a physical, hearing, vision, learning, mental health, and sensory disability. The main goal of OOD services is employment. So whether you're currently employed or not, your eligibility for our services is based on your unique situation. So we work directly with you to determine your eligibility for services. This work is accomplished through some assessments. We do one-on-ones, and that can either be in person or virtual meetings with one of our counselors. And then we work through this eligibility process with you. So if you do have a disability, that's the first criteria that you would meet. When we talk about mental health, that's typically one that I think a lot of people don't necessarily always consider a disability, but oftentimes when we're talking about individuals who are justice involved and within the reentry community, we see some barriers related to mental health. And those things can include such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, and substance use disorders. So while that some people may not think about the fact that they do have a disability, a diagnosis of a mental health or substance use would qualify you for our services. Mental health, Diagnosis is if you suspect that you may have a diagnosis, but you have not been formally diagnosed, we can send you for a psychological assessment and get the necessary documentation that we need for that first part of that eligibility. The other parts of our eligibility is that your disability makes it difficult for you to get or keep a job. Oftentimes what we see is that maybe it's not getting connected to the resources and finding the job, but it's maintaining the job. There may be some barriers with some self-direction, getting an individual, maybe someone you or someone that you know is struggling with navigating the employment world. Where do you go and fill out an application? How do you schedule yourself to ensure that you're able to make all of your obligations? Sometimes there are some barriers when it comes to interpersonal communication. How do you advocate for yourself in the workplace? Maybe there's some struggles when it comes to communication with peers or with your supervisor. And so those are the things that we look for in saying that your disability makes it difficult for you to get or keep a job. The last two criteria is you can benefit from OOD services and that you need our services to secure and maintain employment suitable for you. Those ones are typically a general given. I don't have a formal diagnosis of any sort, but I know when I was, going through school and even when I was in college for 4 years before I decided to change my major. So I could have definitely benefited from some of this vocational services that we provide. So it's typically stuff that anybody can benefit from and that anybody would need in order to be able to obtain or maintain employment. So the third step in our process of receiving services at our agency is we have to do what's called development of an individualized plan for employment. So once you qualify for services, you will have a VR counselor who will work with you and they'll help set a job goal and determine what services can help you to reach that job goal. This is called creating an individualized plan for employment, which is it's like an agreement between you and us that lists what your job goal is going to be, what you choose, and then the services that you're going to get. So during that process of creating that plan for employment, some of the things that you'll talk about with your counselor are things of what you like to do, what you're good at, and what your unique strengths are. We also take some things into consideration and we'll think about, what is your job goal and what are some of the things that you're interested in doing? What have you done in the past? What are some resources that you have that, you would think that would be imperative to that job goal? Any concerns or interests or maybe priorities. Maybe you're just not interested in working in a certain community. You're not interested in working in a certain, if you want full-time, part-time, depending on the hours that you want to work, if you prefer first shift, second shift, third shift, we take all of those things into consideration. We are going to connect your job goal to hiring needs of our employment partners. We have an entire division within our agency that their sole job is to go out and work with employers in the community. And they're constantly connecting to employers to let them know what it's like to work with individuals that we serve. They go and do disability etiquette training for employers. We talked to them about typical barriers related to transportation needs. We do talk about backgrounds, and we try to work with employers who are going to be conscious and be a little bit more open to somebody with a background. And so we have people who are going out there and having those conversations on behalf of our participants. And then we have a list of employers that they're constantly giving us what their current job openings are. And we are able to work with the individuals that we serve with helping to apply for those jobs. Now, sometimes people take, what we talk about having employer partners. We are not a temp agency. We don't just have jobs waiting for people, but we do have partners to connect you. You'll still have to go through the process of interviewing, applying for the job, interviewing, and anything else that anybody else off the street would need to do in order to gain that position. You'll have to do as well. So the other thing that we do and we think about is making sure that the services that we suggest are going to help you get the job, and then checking if the services are going to be cost effective. We do want to make sure that everything that we do is going to be what's, fiscally responsible. Again, we are a state agency, so we just have to make sure that we're spending, the constituents' dollars and the money that is received from the federal government in an appropriate manner. Our goal in providing you with vocational counseling and guidance is to give you the information and support that you need to make some well-informed choices. So when making your employment plan, it's important to choose a job goal that's a good fit for you and the services that you'll need to help you reach your goal, and who will provide those services for you. And I'll get into that in a little bit. We'll continue to check in throughout the services and ensure that everything's going smoothly and collaborate on any adjustments that are needed to the plan and the services that we've laid out for you. Next slide. So this is just a small list of the services and supports and resources that we typically provide for individuals. It's not an all-encompassing list, but it's ones that we use most often. So the very first one is that career counseling. When we are doing the the guidance and counseling, that's where we're doing a lot of our information of giving you some feedback of what career choice or job goal that you're going to do. And so one of the things that we always have to do is we have to look at what is the need, or we call the local labor market inventory of what's needed out there. And we have some tools and things that we use to find out what are some up and coming jobs, what are some things that maybe have really good options for job openings, what are some higher paying wages, what are some up and coming things. We have different partners across the state, some other state agencies that we sit in groups and we talk about what are some of the changes that are coming as far as credentialing and how can we get, some credential attainment and get people licenses and things like that. And so that's where that career counseling comes in, of giving you that information and helping you to make the best decision that you can when it comes to the services that you're going to get. We do everything when it comes to resume and interview preparation, if that's something that you need. We provide interview and work clothing, along with transportation as necessary. If you need it, we can help you to actually apply for a job, and then help you with that placement. So we will do anything from, helping you search for things on Indeed. We will go in and help you navigate that, create a profile. We do also have, we pay for our individuals. We pay for services, our third-party services, that will go out there and they will help you to, go and look in certain areas and knock on doors and things like that. And so we're able to go out into the community and really work with you and put that effort in with you in order to help you find a job. For anybody who is receiving public benefits, such as Social Security or Medicaid, we have what's called work incentives consultation. And we can help you with making sure that whatever benefits that you're getting, and making sure that work doesn't impact those benefits. And so you can work with a work incentives a planner who is going to go over all of your benefits and then tell you how much money you can make a month and not have any of your benefits impacted. They also will then give you some information of if you're looking at a job that maybe you will no longer need some of those public benefits, because the place that you'll be getting employed does provide you the benefits and additional money that you would get without work, or that you would get if you had not worked. And so those are the types of things that work incentives planner is going to do with you. We do help with any sort of education or occupational training that's necessary in order to reach your job goal. While the job goal is always the main priority, we then look at what are the services that are going to be needed in order to get to that job goal. So if you are looking to go into social work, for example, and you want to become a social worker, we know that a degree and some certification and training is going to be necessary for that. So we can look at potentially providing you education and sending you to a college or whatever program is necessary in order for you to achieve that. We also can help with getting your GED and then, progressing from there. Occupational training, again, this is not an all-encompassing list, but this is just some of the ones that we tend to see a little bit more, is that plumbing, HVAC, electrical, CDL. You can think of like barbers, things like that. We often assist financially and pay for that, and then any tools that you may need that are necessary. We do provide technology that's necessary to obtain and maintain employment. So that could be anywhere from a watch to a phone to a computer in order to complete classes. Some people, depending on what their disability, may need some other technology that's necessary, some adaptive equipment, and so we can assist with that as well. Um, we do assist with professional licensures, tools, and equipment, like I had talked about. And then we do connect you to your local Ohio Means Jobs, which is in every county, and then any other resources because we work collaboratively. So we want to make sure that you're getting as many connected to as many resources related to employment as possible. While the Ohio Means Jobs has the ability to do certain things that we don't, we have the ability to do things that they don't. And so we work collaboratively to ensure that all of the resources are utilized to the best ability and that you have that connection. Okay. And the last step of our services is case closure. Like I had said, the main goal of our services is to help people to get employment. So the first thing to do when we decide to close a case is that we want to make sure that that person has achieved employment outcomes that was on the plan. The employment must be permanent. That's for your main job goal. We are able to assist with some temporary or short-term employment while you obtain long-term employment. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes people are in a training or they're going through school and they needed a job yesterday. And so maybe your goal is to not work at, McDonald's every single day, but that's what you can do today. We can help assist you with getting a job that's temporary while you work on a long-term goal of either, getting a certification, or maybe it is taking a little bit longer just based on what your job goal is. We can work through that. So for closure, that we wouldn't close if it was just something that was temporary, but we are going to make sure that your employment's permanent. The other thing is that we want to make sure that we did provide you some service that's contributed to your employment. And then once you get employed, we're going to make sure that you have maintained employment independently for 90 days. So we want to make sure that you are comfortable in what your environment, that you're comfortable in what your job duties are. We want to make sure that you're comfortable in you know, in what you're supposed to be doing, how to talk to your employer, how to work with your peers, making sure that you can advocate for yourself. We are not a one-time service, but we're not a long-time service. So, we don't typically keep cases open for years and years and years. We do it as long as it takes to make sure that someone's progressing through the steps necessary for employment. But let's just say that, you get a job, you close your case successfully, something happens to that job, you can always come back and get started with us again. There's always opportunities too that while you're in employment, maybe that a new position comes up and you want to advance in that career, but you need a bit of assistance with that. We can also, have you come back and start a case with us again so that we can make sure that we're getting you to your career goals and to reach your potential. So again, just to get started with us, it's pretty easy. You can go to oodworks.com. There's a 1-800 number. Tomorrow at the in-person sessions, there will be people who are going to be available for you to talk to on a more individual basis. You can talk to like somebody there who you can talk about whatever, your needs are, maybe talk to them about what are some of the potential options. And then they'll be able to give you just a little bit more information about what's happening local in your area. And they'll be available in person tomorrow. And then this is just some of our social media, and then our main website is ood.ohio.gov. Okay, so that's the high level of what we do for individuals. So I can go to some question and answer. Okay, so someone said, is there a list of disabilities that demonstrate who qualifies? How do you handle a person who's on disability assistance but may be able to work sometimes? I wouldn't necessarily say that we have a qualifying list, but if you do have a documented disability, you can work with that individual. If you are not sure, you're always welcome to apply. Like I said, we work with anybody who has physical limitations, sensory, visual, cognitive, and mental health, and that substance use is included in that mental health. And so you just have to be able to, you just have to follow up and identify what your disability is when you apply, and we can talk to you about if that would apply or not. Um, and then how do you handle person? So one of the services that we do provide, like I had mentioned, was that we do that work incentives planning. And so we look at somebody who is receiving those benefits. And that work incentives planner is going to take what your benefits are, and everything that it encompasses, and be able to identify and tell you how many hours or essentially how much a month you can make. And so that's a service that we provide so that you can figure all that out. Another question is, can someone apply if their SUD is in remission if someone has been in recovery for a while? Yes, you can always apply if that is. And then when you're working with your counselor, some of the things that you'll just want to make sure is just identifying, what is it that are some of your symptoms of substance use, and then you'll just ask you some questions related to some of your history. And then once you work with the counselor, they'll be able to determine that determination for eligibility. Another question, do you help OOD participants with technology use such as establishing a cell phone, testing, setting a voicemail, writing proper email communications, etc.? Yes. So we do have the ability to give individuals some of our, we call them bridge support services. So essentially, if somebody is, given some technology, we'll have the training that is related to the supports that we're providing. So if it's technology and it's a cell phone and you've never worked with a cell phone, we'll make sure that you have all of that information. A lot of times during our job supports and our job placement assistance, that's where we work on what are some proper ways of making sure that, hey, when you're setting your cell phone, what would be an appropriate voicemail? This is how you write a resume, or how you conduct emails, and how you write thank you notes or thank you letters to people that you're applying with. And they will work with you on some of that. And then once you get a job, we can provide some what's called on the job coaching. And so that's where somebody is going to help you with the tasks that you're doing in your job and help you navigate some of those. Again, that's to help you get started, make sure that you're good to go, and that you know what are some of the better the better etiquette when it comes to employment. Okay, so it says, shout out that OOD has helped people with anxiety disorders to practice and go to take their driving tests. Yes, we have. We do tons of driving tests. We see a lot of individuals, with a diagnosis of anxiety, and we work through some of those things that may, be barriers to employment. I think, when we talk about self-direction and we talk about some of those interpersonal skills, those are some of the things that we see as barriers. So yes, we do provide any support that the individual may need in order to make sure that they are being successful um, at work.
Just like to add that people with learning disabilities definitely qualify for
Mhm.
your services. And I don't think people realize that, especially if
Yeah.
they received the IEP in high school or any other
Yep.
use of school, they definitely qualify.
Yes. The question, do you help with ODL classes and test expenses? Are we talking about just a driver's license? Is that what the ODL stands for? Ohio driver's license? If we are talking about a driver's, yes, then yes, we do. Mhm. Again, if that's one of the things. So think about when we're writing your plan for employment, we look at where you are and then where you want to be. So we always look at your goal and then we fill in anything that's necessary. So if, getting your driver's license in order to be more independent and it's what's necessary for you to get to and from your job, then that's what we'll do. We also do pay for tutors too. That's one of the things I think that sometimes people don't realize is that we can help with tutoring if you are in an education or in an occupational training. Any other questions?
I can just add that I think it's wonderful that OOD have evidence-based supported employment model. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
someone is asking about used cars.
Yeah, we do not pay. That's one of the things. There are certain things that we cannot purchase. Cars are one of the things that we cannot purchase. However, we may be able to do repairs on a car that you already have. We have policies and procedures for every step of the way. If you ever have questions about like, oh, can they do this? Can they do that? It's worth reaching out to and talking to somebody about what's necessary. Um, I will tell you, like, you can't just come to us and be like, hey, I need you to help me, get transportation to and from work. Like, there's some things that go into, us providing that supports. A lot of times it's doing some vocational guidance and counseling. We're going to do what we call retention services. So we're going to make sure that we are following you through, the life of what our services are, and then making sure that you are maintaining that employment once we provide any assistance that you need. Okay, idea. I plan to send this webinar to some of my clients who I know will qualify and who haven't made contact with OOD. I think hearing this may encourage them. Yes. And then you can get all of our information, from our website, but I also can send Reba our application information. But the easiest way, honestly, is to go to that oodworks.com. And that's going to be the best place to start applying for services because you can do everything right then and there. And if you are somebody who is like out in the community and you are working with clients, if you sign up at oodworks.com, you can then apply for people with your email. So you'll get a login as well. You sign in with your email, and then you can then send applications in for other people, and you can send them in for multiple people. And then you'll be able to help navigate that process with them. Someone said, is there a minimum age for OD services? There is. We work with 14 and over. So somebody does have to be 14 years old, but that's what our age limit is. It's 14 till whatever age you're willing to work. Yes, yeah, there is VR in every state. I think some people don't realize that. I collaborate with a lot of different states in one of our partnerships, and so Washington is one of the states that I do work with closely when it comes to specifically to mental health. So if you do know people in other states, every state has a VR office. Everyone's called something a little bit different, but if you just Google your state and the vocational rehabilitation or the state that they're in, then they'll be able to connect you to that state. Okay, what resources do you have for reentry job seekers with a disability? So the main resource that we have is ourself, as far as us being able to assist you with finding employment. So the resource is either if we can't provide that whatever service is necessary for you, then we are going to make sure that one of our partners can. Again, we also work with employment with employers out in the community. And so we can connect you to an employer who's going to be best fit. We try and do our best job of making sure that we're talking to our employers in the community to make sure that they are, background friendly, essentially. So if we do know what maybe some of their limitations are in their background, sometimes it's just having that connection of letting an individual know, like, this is the individual who's going to be applying. They may have a background in X, Y, and Z. Are you willing to work with them? And we can help to navigate that. Any other questions?
Do you have any specific partnerships with any specific employers?
Oh gosh, we have a whole list of them. I mean, there's hundreds of them. So it would just depend on like where we're talking across the state. We have an employer partner list. I think it's available on our website. But I mean, we partner from anyone from Giant Eagle to we partner with a lot of the universities. We serve students within the universities. We partner with Honda. We partner with Pepsi. We partner with so many. I mean, like I said, there's hundreds and hundreds of partners that we have. It would just be specific to, I could tell you, it would just be depending on what county you're in and things like that. Yeah, but we have tons of employers statewide. Kroger is a big one. I do know that. So
I know there's people that utilize the vending machines with the
yeah.
partnership. That seems to be very profitable and
Yeah, so that's our BE program, the vending machine. So in any state agency, it's so in all of the state buildings, in probably some of the A buildings, like at the prisons, and then you'll see them even at the rest stops, is that there are vending machines and it has our logo on it. So we have a business enterprise program where we help individuals with that. Now, there are some program requirements specific to that program. I cannot tell you all the requirements of that because that's a different part of our division, but they do help people who meet those requirements of that program. Um, OD has been a wonderful support of our program. Yeah, CareSource Life Services Job Connect. Great. Do you have subcontracted service providers that assist with job coaching, with the coaching evaluations and job development, or is it provided as a direct service? That's a great question. Almost all of our services are vendored out to a third party. We are what we typically call a plan and pay. We plan for the services and then we pay for the services to occur. There's only a few direct services that we do provide. Um, we do provide some of that work incentives consultation or the work incentives planning that we talked about when it comes to the benefits. And then we do offer some direct service when it comes to internal job development. So that means that we do have our own job developers who are going out and helping you. They're doing stuff with your resume. They're getting you prepared for employment. They are going and assisting you with the interview if necessary or following up with you after the interview. They're going to help you with that resume development. But that's the only thing that we do. And then they'll follow you along with the employment. But what they don't do is they don't provide any of that on the job supports if that's what's necessary. So, when talking with your counselor and looking at what your needs are, sometimes you'll get offered, maybe some direct service because it just fits your certain situation. Or we have a list of providers that you will be able to look at. You can get information about them. And then your counselor will be able to help you with what's called informed choice. You get to make that decision of who you work with and then decide a provider that's going to work best for you.
Are you offering any like hiring incentives for these employers that hire people with disabilities?
We are. So we have several incentives. One of the first ones that we do is for hiring. Oh, for the employers, you mean? Not okay. So some of the employers, they get some incentives, and our employer innovation services, they talk to individuals about like what they may get as in terms of like tax credits and things like that. But our providers who work with our individuals, so the motivation and some of that stuff is to be able to get those good connections, is that our vendors or our providers who are helping you look for the job, they do get some incentives. And some of those incentives is finding employment and connecting you to wages and getting a wage that's above what we call SGA. So there's like this minimum level of money. They also get some stuff for finding employment at a faster rate. And then new is that our providers are getting incentives for working with individuals who have justice involvement or have a background. Previously, there might be some hesitation with some providers because individuals with a background may take a little bit longer to find employment. And so now there is this incentive to work with the population to ensure that we are providing services, making sure that individuals are getting the best quality of service that they can get, and that we're assisting our providers with that because we know that it can take a little bit longer sometimes depending on what the background is.
So I have a question. If someone is
Yeah.
receiving Social Security benefits,
Mhm.
are they allowed to work in addition to that? And if so, how long?
Yeah, so that's part of that work incentives planning that I've mentioned. I can't tell you specifically. It would all just depend on whatever the benefits are that the individual is receiving. And so that's where we have that work incentives consultation or that helps to look at what the specific benefits are that an individual is receiving. And then how would employment impact those benefits? So oftentimes, we're given a report or there's a report that's given that says based off of the benefits that you receive and some other additional information, you can make up to an additional $1,000 a month, let's just say. And so then if you and your counselor know, okay, I can only make $1,000 a month before my benefits are going to be impacted, then that's what's going to help drive some of that conversation of what type of job are you looking for? What is the wage that you're looking for? What are the amount of hours that you're looking for? And that's going to help with some of that informed choice of making a decision of what that job goal is going to be. Okay, so then another question, do you refer applicants to third-party providers, or where do I find the list of providers in the counties I work in? So on our website, you can go to, I believe it is individuals, and under that we have what's called a provider search. So even if there's a search button at the top right-hand corner of our website, but you can go to the provider, you can just go to that search thing and just type in provider search, and it'll take you to a list of all of our providers that we have. And then you can narrow that down based off of what the services that you're looking at, and then what the county is that you're in. And it'll tell you who the vendor is and then what service they provide. It's all on our website at ood.ohio.gov. Any other questions?
So what are some ways that you reach out to employers to try to increase the resources?
So there's a few ways that we do that. Like I said, we have an entire division that's devoted to partnering with employers. So they may target a specific population that we want to serve. So for example, one of the unit came to me when I was a supervisor and said, hey, we're looking to increase, employers for your individuals who are working with Jobs for Recovery. So our Jobs for Recovery is a partnership with our with specialized dockets in various counties. And so that person of that unit went out and just targeted some employers, and we talked about what would be, some supportive environments for somebody who's in recovery, looking at geographic location, talking about backgrounds. And so they were able to go out and have those conversations with employers. We rely a lot on some additional resources that we have related to what local labor markets are. So we know what are some up and coming jobs just based off of um, just what's out there in the local labor market. And so then we're able to look at, hey, these are the types of jobs that are being posted. This is, the wages, and then this is what some of the credentials or the needs that you must have, right? The minimum qualifications. And so we'll look at what's up and coming and then go and look at those employers. So there's different ways that we do that. Our vendors or our third party that we pay for services, they also are going out and developing, a list of employers in some of those up and coming markets and employers. And so, or I'm sorry, job fields. And so they're looking at developing relationships in the community so that if they have an individual who comes in and is like, hey, I want to get a job in being a mechanic, or I want to get a job like in the automotive field. They can say, oh, okay, yeah, cool. I have a connection because I've gone out and I know that this is an up and coming thing. And so I've gone out and made some connections. And so we really rely on the local level with what's happening within the counties. And then each area that we serve, they have those connections within the specific counties. So our services, again, they're spread out statewide. So a lot of it's going to depend on, what county you serve, but we do have our third-party vendors, and then we also have our internal employment division that's going out and developing those partnerships.
Do they ever have the employment forums where they bring successful clients to share it with other employers as a way to get them their buy-in to maybe increase
Yeah.
resources?
Yeah, so our employment, I'm just going to refer to them as EIS. It's a little bit easier just to keep calling them that. So that's our Employment and Innovation Services Division. So they actually do a series for employers on various things. And a lot of it just has to do with, the topics at hand. I was a part of one of their more recent webinars that they provided, and it was working with individuals in recovery, so mental health and substance use included. And so we part of the panel that was there was an individual who was in recovery, and her what her supports were when it came to finding employment. And then now she's working in an environment where it's a recovery friendly workplace. And she's talking about the things that she's doing to implement those supports and services. And so that's just one topic that they do, but they provide this to all of their partners, and we're constantly educating our partners about individuals that we're serving. We always try to offer some firsthand experience by sharing stories, things like that. We're always part of our communications is getting those stories out there and sharing them about individuals who are obtaining employment so that employers can see, right, that the stigma of working with an individual who is either in recovery or reentry, that stigma doesn't need to be there, and that there are people that can be successful, that there are people who are very productive when it comes to employment, and that they are reliable employees.
Are there any clients that you're working with that you're just really having a hard time finding any employment, especially if they're in rural communities where employment opportunities may be limited?
Yeah, so a lot of times the biggest barriers that we have right now are in our communities where transportation is a problem. So we're trying to be a little bit more, I guess, like open-minded as to what transportation looks like. I know in some of our more rural counties, some of the things that we have explored and that we are continuing to explore is things like bikes and the utilization of a bicycle. We have some partnerships going on with Lyft and with um not Lyft, but the other one, Uber. And we are, helping to navigate to where we can help plan, pay, and provide that transportation through Lyft and Uber, and like they're through their concierge service essentially. So we're opening that up. We're looking, we do things virtually. We try and assist people that maybe if transportation is an issue, can we find them a work from home virtual appointment or virtual employment, and then we can get them everything that's necessary in order to be successful with working from home. So those are the barriers that we typically see. Sometimes, depending on somebody's background, it could be if they have a violent crime, it can be a little bit more challenging. So we try and connect with employers who it's going to be going into maybe that mom and pop, like I'm going to go back to being a mechanic, right? Going back to that mom and pop shop and saying, hey, I've got this person. They do have a background. This is what their history is, but then these are all the great things, and these are the things that they've been working with, and these are the supports that they have in order to, to reintegrate back into the community. And, one of the things that we like to do with our jobs for recovery is that when individuals are getting ready for employment, sometimes the judges or the probation officers will write letters of recommendation that they're in a program that's going to support them. That they have an entire team that is treating them holistically. So looking at, if they have treatment that's necessary, do they have peer support? So those are we work with peer support, and just making sure that we're helping an individual and then helping the community and employers to know that they do have a team of support of individuals, and we are part of that. And so we're going to be there to assist them. We're going to be there to navigate. The employer can use us as a resource as well of being able to communicate with us. Now, if the individual agrees to allowing the employer to talk to us, but just being able to be there as support to both the individual and the employer, but making sure that everything related to employment is going to be successful, and that the individual has that support and the employer has support as well.
So I think Governor DeWine just increased funding for people with disabilities. So I think that's fabulous that he has increased that funding. Have you seen an increase providing resources since that happened?
Yes, so we're actually going through our new fiscal year, and we're always looking at our budget. And so I know some of the things that we are on the biennium for next year, like next July, essentially, is that we're going to be looking at funding. But I will tell you that in the more recent years, I've gone with our director, to testify, in front of, our state, Congress and the governor. And they talk about all the great things that we're doing. And we have been one of the agencies that has continued to get what we call match funding. So essentially, every dollar that we spend, the federal government gives us, I think it's $3 and like 67 cents, I think is what it is now. So for every dollar that we spend on somebody,
James H. McGee Boulevard, Dayton, and I-75 South.
we get that money back. And then we get some match from the state to increase our funding so that we can support individuals. We're also looking at our other state agencies and looking at how we can partner so that we can have some of that shared funding to make sure, again, that we have those supports that are necessary. We have partnerships with DRC, with DYS, Office of Reentry. We work with mental health. We work with the Supreme Court, again, all to make sure that we are providing those supports that are necessary and ensuring that, if we're having trouble funding, can somebody else fund it? We want to make sure that we're doing that. But yes, we're constantly getting increased funding. So the more funding that the more people we can serve.
That definitely makes it a win-win situation. So
Yes, I would agree.
we definitely encourage all of our partners here today, if they're doing any kind of community outreach events, to make sure they're reaching out to your office, so you all can
Hmm.
provide any clients that they may be serving, what
Hmm.
kind of resources are available for people with
Yeah,
disabilities, because it's very important for people,
right.
um, to instill that hope in them.
Yeah. Yep. And I think one of the great things that we've been doing and how I got connected is just being part of a coalition of looking at what's going on in the different counties, and just making sure that, people within the coalition and know that this is a resource. And again, if we cannot provide something or we are not able to serve an individual, we'll make sure that we connect them to somebody who can. Any other questions?
Do you do any community outreach events with Leslie Campbell, since she's in Northwest Ohio?
Yeah, I actually have a meeting with Leslie right after this.
Okay.
So she's one of my, I always call her, she's one of my partner in crime. So she works in mental health. She is my partner that I work with for the mental health agencies. So just making sure that we have those connections. So yeah, I'm actually going to be meeting with her right after this.
Do you work with Sherry Markley? Because I deal a lot with her. She's in the Defiance area.
Yeah, so she's one of our
Supervisor.
supervisors. Yep. So I'll help to provide some guidance to that area. I was actually just in the Toledo area last 2 weeks ago, just providing some supports and trainings to our internal staff. So yeah, we're always looking at how we can better, work with our partners, just to make sure that we're serving our individuals.
I work with Carrie Werty in Toledo.
Oh,
She
okay.
does our outreach events.
Yeah. Yep. And we do have, we do have staff who are constantly attending outreach events and making sure that, we're connecting and getting all the individuals that we can to know about our services and that we're allowing individuals some of that, like you said, just offering that hope that, they do have the supports necessary in order to be, successful and employment and have employment.
Yeah, I think it's very important, especially when you're dealing with young clients. You don't want to
Mhm.
see them limit themselves to Social Security benefits when there's a lot of other opportunities they can be taken advantage of in the community, to increase their resources to help
Right.
them
And
grow.
yeah, and I think sometimes, and I know it can be scary once somebody is already receiving, benefits. It can be scary to come off of it. But sometimes it's just some of the education that's necessary of informing people, that, they're able to make more than what their benefits, can provide them. We do have a lot of resources when it comes to our transition. We work with high schools, we work with colleges, and then again, we are partnering with DYS to just specifically with DYS just to make sure that we are creating a seamless transition from when somebody is getting out of a facility, and same with DRC, that once somebody's getting out of facility that there is a reentry plan, because we want to make sure that we're providing that support to individuals as soon as they're coming out into the community. So we're trying to get our services and some of that background stuff that we talked about, so the application, the eligibility, and getting that plan done prior to them being released so that when somebody is getting into the community, we can start with services as soon as necessary.
We just want to let everybody know we just have about 4 minutes. So if you have any questions, make sure you're putting them in the chat because we don't have that much longer. So we're getting comments. Thank you. Great information, which I thought it was a lot of good information that you provided today. And you're very knowledgeable, and it was very nice to meet you today. And I'm sure everyone here really appreciate all the good information you provided.
Great. Thank you,
We
everybody.
can
Have
hear
a
your
good.
compassion too.
Yes, yeah, it's a population I'm very passionate about. It's been in there. I will throw my email in the chat for everybody if you have any questions. I can get you connected to your local resource or just give you some additional guidance as necessary.
And I believe you all have a website. They can sign up for information, news information.
Yep. So if you go to ood.ohio.gov, which I'll put in the chat, as soon as you go to our website, there's going to be a pop-up. And if you put your email in there, it'll give you some information. There's also, I'm going to put in here our website for applying for services as well. But you can get to applying for services just from our general website at ood.ohio.gov.
Just one more question. So if someone's trying to get benefits, do you recommend them to apply for benefits before they work with your agency, or what's the best way to get them?
No, if somebody is looking to apply for benefits, that's not something that we typically really we don't help them with that. We can give them the information that's necessary, but it's really an informed choice of they're figuring out their benefits. It's up to them. We can continue to work with an individual, and then once they receive benefits, then we can do that work incentives planning. We've had that happen before where people are in the process of receiving benefits while they're also working with us. And so that's how we can navigate that. So if somebody does end up getting benefits, then we can just incorporate that into their plan when they do receive it.
That's really good information to have because I'm sure that have
Mhm.
came up many times working with
Yeah,
them.
yeah, it's come up a couple times. And what's funny is that one of the divisions in our agency is determining eligibility for benefits for individuals, which I didn't know this until coming to our agency is that the benefits like Social Security, that's all delegated from the federal government to each state. Each state has an agency that does that. And our agency happens to be that person for Ohio, but it's a completely different division. Um, yeah, we rarely talk. We have communication, we have connections, but we operate individually from them.
All right. Thank you, Mallory, for a wonderful presentation. It's been fun. I enjoyed this hour has went by really fast.
Mhm.
So I think people received a lot of great information today, which I'm sure they're going to be sharing with any clients that they're serving.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate being here, and hopefully everyone got some great information that if you can't use it yourself, you can share with other people.
Thank you. And I think we should end our session since it's 2:30. Have a
All
good
right.
day,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Wow. Bye-bye.